Greetings, love warriors. I'm so excited to be here with y'all. We have an awesome topic tonight. We're talking about rage. Yes, rage. Rage is a hidden ascension symptom. Okay. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. But, I want to take a little time and organize my thoughts around it because it may be a shocker for some people. The idea of rage as an ascension symptom can be very shocking for people. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about rage as an ascension symptom. And you guys, I'm just getting, my Palo Santo going here to bring in some peaceful energy here, some grounded energy here. I do highly recommend the use of Palo Santo, also known as Hollywood. Um, Please say hello as you come into the room so I can give you a greeting here. You guys, we're talking about rage tonight. And the reason I say that rage is a hidden ascension symptom is because rage is something that we tend to judge, okay? We tend to judge when we see rage in other people. We tend to judge when we see rage within ourselves. Greetings, Jitin. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. So good to see you. Rage is an emotion that is easy to judge. Rage is something that we also tend to feel fearful about when we feel this within ourselves because, you can think that you're going to lose control of yourself. Okay. But I want to talk about how to use rage intentionally to create or allow an awakening for yourself. Okay. So before I get into that, I want to introduce myself. For those who don't know, my name is Pangea Northstar. I am a teacher, a healer, specializing in Reiki, as well as Compassion Key and other clearing and visualization methods that I love to share. Normally, I'm talking quite a bit about love. So maybe we're in opposite world tonight. We're talking about rage tonight, but maybe rage is not such an opposite. Maybe allowing your rage to come to the forefront is not such an opposite emotion or an opposite process, because honoring all of your feelings is an act of love and kindness for yourself. Okay, so tonight we're talking about rage, which is a sleeping giant for many of us. And, we tend to, in the spiritual community, think that we're supposed to be experiencing sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and gumdrops all the time. And that's just not true, right? That's just not how this happens. Give me some fire in the chat if you have found that since you've been on your spiritual journey, since you've been into your awakening, you're not on cloud nine all the time. Give me some fire in the chat if you find that to be true. We're just being honest tonight, right? There's still going to be challenges in your personal life, and we know there are still many challenges in the world all around us, many of which can be frustrating and can even make you angry, which can be very uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable to confront your anger. Can be very uncomfortable when you recognize rage coming up inside of yourself, right? And due to a lot of the judging and shaming that we tend to do of our own emotions, as well as a little thing called spiritual bypassing, right? And spiritual bypassing is when you use something spiritual to like kind of smooth it over and kind of deny and ignore your feelings, or deny or ignore something that's actually happening in your life. And to like minimize that thing rather than dealing with it head on. Okay. But I want us to talk about this sleeping giant of rage. Okay. And my intention is for this to be a short message tonight, but if you guys have some comments or some questions about this, I still want to answer those. So if you have questions and comments that come up for you, please put those in the chat so I can get to them. Okay. Now, rage is, thank you so much for that comment in the chat. I appreciate that. Rage is an emotion that we often associate with the solar plexus chakra. Okay. The solar plexus chakra is a energy center within the body. It is located just above the navel and below the sternum. The color that represents it is yellow, and it is associated with the sun, right? Which is also fire. Okay. So rage is associated with the solar plexus chakra because it is a center of emotions that are associated with the ego. Okay. So rage can come up for you. This could be a personal trigger. This could be something that you see happening in the world. But I want to help you to reframe rage. Okay. Rage can be an indicator of something that has been deeply repressed within you coming up to the surface. Okay. And this can happen in a couple of different ways. Waking this sleeping giant. And I'm going to give you two examples. Okay. Two major examples. This can happen in many different ways, but I want to give you two major examples and how you may be able to handle these things. So one thing that may awaken this sleeping giant within you could be a challenge, right? A challenge that comes up for you that really pushes you to remember who you are. Okay. This could be someone challenging your beliefs, someone challenging the way that you present yourself, the way that you live your life. It could even be the way that you choose to make your money, what you choose to do for a living. And I had a situation that happened recently where someone, was challenging me about my career choices and my choice to live in my purpose. I'm like, well, I don't really understand what you're doing. And, that's fine. These things are not for everyone to understand. What matters is that you understand your choices in life and your choices to pursue your purpose in life, and that you understand that it's fulfilling for you and your means of making a difference in the world, right? But having that challenge, it actually, for me, it helped me to remember some things about who I am, right? It helped me to reconnect to my purpose. And it really, and in the moment, I felt like discomfort. In the moment, I didn't recognize that there was any anger coming up in me at all. And later on, maybe like within the next day or two, I was like, man, that really sucked. Like what really made that person come at me like that? And it was kind of because the way it was done, it wasn't done in a nice way, you know? And I tend to be nice to people, you know? I tend to be kind to people and treat people the way that I want to be treated. But sometimes people are so deeply unhappy with their own lives and their own choices that they feel a need to kind of come at you and project the questions they have about their own life onto you. And, you know, that's fine. But you don't have to allow that to be in your space, right? So for me, it really just kind of inspired me to reconnect with what it is that I'm doing and my commitment to help other people. You know, that person who was challenging me about the way that I live in my purpose is actually a person who really could benefit from the work that I'm doing in the world. Okay, that person is a person who needs a lot of, you know, who needs like deep healing of some unresolved issues. So something about my energy, my commitment, my zeal, my enthusiasm for helping people in the world was triggering for them. Because at that time, or at this time, they're, you know, not really engaging with anything that's purposeful or meaningful, right? So that's just one example of how a thing can happen for you. It also, you can look at that. For me, I looked at it as inspiration. It started off as a challenge or a conflict, and I turned it into inspiration, which is also an example of transmutation, right? When you take an energy that is low vibrational and meant to be harmful towards you, and you make a conscious decision to change that energy into inspiration. You turn that into fuel for something positive that you want to do. Okay? So now, a second example of this sleeping giant being awakened in you could be just straight up conflict. Straight up conflict, right? A challenge that just comes in the form of old wounds being triggered. Okay, old wounds being triggered. Old wounds being triggered is also an example of an awakening of the sleeping giant. The sleeping giant of rage. Sometimes there are things that can happen in your life that are touching on an old wound that you thought was, either you thought you've already healed it, or you thought, you know, I'll just put that on the back burner and I can get around to that later. Okay. Sometimes we're kind of conscious that there's something that needs to be addressed, but we kind of just push it to the side and just say, you know, I'll deal with that later. Well, it never fails that when you do that, something happens that brings that wound right to the forefront of your mind. Okay? So if you've ever experienced that, go ahead and give me some fire in the chat. Let me know that that has happened for you, that that resonates for you. If you have ever had something come up in your life that just, you know, really threw you for a loop and brought up an old wound that you didn't realize was still there for you, that can happen. It really is destined to happen if there's something that you're pushing to the side. But the thing that can be really frustrating about it is it can still happen even with something that you think that you have resolved. Now, along your healing journey, when you go through life and you're healing different wounds that have happened for you in the past, you're going to find that there is a core set of wounds that keep coming up for you. And this can become very frustrating because it can make you feel like you're going in circles. But I always say, you're not going in circles, you're growing in spirals. And I have another video on my channel with that title, Going in Circles or Growing in Spirals. And the reason why I say this, you're growing in spirals, is because if you're at the beginning of your journey, and we'll just say, we'll let, this level represent a starting point, and you hit these key woundings, these core woundings, this set of woundings that are very deep for you and that, maybe come from early childhood or your family of origin, and you get a base level of understanding on those things, you feel better and you move along in your life. It never fails that something else will happen that will bring up those same core woundings. But because you've already, let's just call it level one, because you've already got a base level one understanding, the next time you come upon or you encounter those core woundings, you will deal with them at a higher level. You'll deal with them differently than you did before. And that just continues and continues and continues. So it may feel like you're going in a circle, but because you're dealing with those same woundings at a higher level each time, you're actually growing in spirals, okay? So don't allow yourself to become discouraged or like shame yourself or repress those core woundings that come up for you, because we all deal with it, okay? We all deal with it, all right? So there can be times when you hit one of those core wounds and it can shake you up so badly that you experience some rage, okay? It is totally normal. It's totally normal, okay? And I don't want you to repress that or like shame yourself when you feel rage come up for you, and to not fear that you're going to lose control of yourself, okay? If you acknowledge those feelings and deal with them head on, you're actually less likely to lose control than the person who represses their rage, okay? The person who represses their rage is much more likely to get set off and do something or say something that they didn't actually intend to do, okay? So many times we're assigning a meaning to that feeling. And give me some fire in the chat if you've ever like kind of judged yourself for getting angry or getting upset. Many times we're assigning a meaning to that feeling of anger or rage. And we're saying, oh man, this means, I'm not really spiritual. I'm not really, healed. I'm not really as far along on my journey as I think I am. But I want to encourage you that's not true. Okay. It does not mean that you're not growing just because you get angry or upset sometimes. That's actually really normal, and it's healthy to have the feeling and be able to recognize that feeling. Okay. So whether you have had the sleeping giant of rage awakened by a conflict or a challenge, and even if you were able to turn that into inspiration, I want to encourage you that when you encounter this feeling of rage, this hidden ascension symptom called rage, I encourage you to surrender to that moment. What do I mean? I want you to pause. I want you to sit with that. I want you to think about it. Okay. And in a moment, I'm going to give you an exercise that you can do to help you really uncover what's really bothering you, and to really, place those feelings somewhere and help the energy of that rage to begin to dissolve rather than to just stuff it down. Okay. So, either way, whatever form this is coming to you, it's very important to surrender to that moment, because this is an opportunity for self mastery. Okay. This is an opportunity for self mastery. Okay. This is an opportunity for you to begin to call on any energy within your body that is helpful for you at that time. Whether it's that solar plexus energy of being able to transmute that rage into inspiration, whether it is being able to call on your divine masculine energy to actually, you know, get someone to back up, to get someone to back up off of you, to get a situation under control in that moment. Okay. Because there's still going to be times when you have to defend yourself, because we still live in the world that we live in, right? Or whether it is that you're normally in your masculine and you're normally a person that can be a bit harsh, that can be possibly, a bit domineering, you may need to call upon your divine feminine energy, right? And just come into a place of love and compassion and understanding that the person that's coming at you is actually a hurt person that's feeling inferior themselves, maybe, right? Perhaps they're feeling insecure about who they are, so they need to come at you, right? So when you stop and pause and actually allow yourself to surrender to that feeling, examine that feeling, admit that it's there, then you can begin to call on whatever energies are necessary within yourself and utilize whatever tools you have at your disposal to handle that situation. Thank you, Jatin, so much for your support in the chat. I see your comments. Thank you. I want to give you guys an exercise that I've used for years, okay? For years. And I've had some really funny moments with it. I've had some scary moments with it, but it's actually been really, really useful, okay? And this tool I actually got from a therapist, okay? Now, I've mentioned many times on my channel that that I did years of therapy to help me kind of process some traumas that I experienced in my life. And then from there, in more recent years, I began to use sound healing and energy clearing and more spiritual tools, right? But this is an exercise that a therapist gave me, okay? So one time, at one point in my life, I was going through something that was really difficult. And I had a very, like a present antagonist in my life that I could not easily detach from. Okay. I was just in a very like abusive marriage. Okay. So I was feeling some anger about what I was going through. And my therapist said, it's okay to explore that anger. You don't have to dismiss it and push it down as soon as it comes up. Okay, it's okay to think about what you're angry about. It's okay to ask yourself, well, if there weren't consequences, what would you do? So I learned how to visualize or imagine myself getting back at that person, doing something mean to them, or doing something like I'm a prankster, right? I'm a prankster. So I tend to think of funny things that I would do to a person, right? So recently somebody was being very antagonistic to me, and I ended up having to make a choice to like totally disassociate myself from that person because they were just like a full-on narcissist and you know, has no intention to heal. So I was thinking, I was allowing myself to explore my rage about the situation, and the thought came to me, well, what would I do if I could? I would I would get like 20 open pouches of tuna and throw it into their backyard, and like 20 cats, and just like put 20 cats in their backyard and just let them figure out what to do. Like I would just sneak over there in the middle of the night and just put 20 cats and a dozen packs of open cans of sardines or something in their yard, right? And when I thought about it, it made me laugh. It just made me crack up laughing, you know, because it was like, oh, that's so ridiculous, you know? So then I just kept going with it. Like, what else would you do if you could, Pangea? And I thought, well, I would sneak into their house and cut all the crotches out of their underwear and glue them to their front door, you know? Like, I would just do something crazy, you know, just to make their day difficult, you know, and just, you know, silly things, silly things. Now, you may think of something silly, or you may think of, man, I would just go break something, you know? You may think of those things. But guess what? That is within the confines of your own mind, right? And thinking of these things, whether you're able to think of something funny or you just think of something that really is an angry, you know, thing to do, something destructive, either way, you're still moving that energy through your body and getting to another level of where your understanding of your feelings about that thing. Okay? It's so much better than stuffing that feeling and shaming yourself about that feeling, because the things that you shame yourself about, you will repeat and repeat and repeat. What you resist persists, right? And what you're ashamed of, you don't explore. And exploration of your emotions is so important. It's so important. Thank you for the support in the chat. Like this makes sense, right? So it does take a bit of trust in yourself to allow your mind to go there, but at least you're getting in touch with your feelings. It helps you to identify your feelings. And as you picture yourself, whether it's just like, even if it's just like going off on that person, you imagine yourself going off on that person, allow yourself to explore, well, what would I say to them? And when you think of, well, what would I say? Then you're allowing yourself to hear yourself saying those things, and you end up getting to the root of that problem. It could be that you're saying to that person, you've always been so mean to me. Or, you know, you always try to diminish my accomplishments. You know, you've always been jealous of me. I've only, you know, been kind to you, and you still treat me this way, or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. But when you allow yourself to have that conversation in your mind and hear yourself out, you're able to more clearly identify what's going wrong there. When you know what it is that's pissing you off, right? Then you can better decide, you know, well, what needs to happen here? Is this something that's likely to change? Is this something that I can actually express to this person? Is it likely that this person will hear me? Is there a way that I could express it that would increase the chances of them hearing me while also getting this off of my chest? Or You may even come to the conclusion, you know what? We've actually had this conversation before. I have said something like this to this person before, and they continue to cross my boundaries. I think I may have to discontinue interacting with this person. Sometimes that is the case. And if that's the case, just let it be. Let it be. But the main point here today is that when you allow yourself to identify your feelings, and that could be through this visualization, it may be through journaling about it, or both. You're allowing yourself to really identify your feelings, to feel your feelings, and begin to move through them. Being able to be honest with yourself about your feelings, and being able to forgive yourself for having those feelings, discontinuing to shame yourself about those feelings, can really be a very deep rooting out of old wounds, and it can really take you to the next level in your ascension process, because that's something that you don't have to repeat. You don't have to continue shaming yourself about those feelings. You don't have to continue carrying that when you begin to process it and move through it. Okay? So, if I don't see any questions, I see a lot of encouragement, a lot of confirmation in the chat, and I thank you guys so much for that. But I just wanted to challenge you guys tonight to actually recognize when you have flashes of anger, when you feel this sleeping giant being awakened. Okay? So, you guys, as I mentioned on my channel a few times recently, I am working now with a network of content creators called the Elemental Soul. There is an app that you can download. The name of the app is the Elemental Soul. And there's lots of information there from several content creators. It's all spiritual information. There is free information there, as well as you can get a paid subscription to the app. If you do choose to get the paid subscription and you want to hear more about this type of content that we've been talking about tonight, identifying your emotions, I have a suggestion for a guided journey there that I think you would really enjoy. Check out the elements method. Okay, the elements method. Okay, and when you look at the elements method, the element of spirit talks about meaning and what happens when we are assigning meaning to our emotions. Sometimes we're assigning meaning to events that happen in our lives, right? And sometimes we can be assigning meaning unnecessarily. So just like we talked about tonight, sometimes we assign meaning incorrectly to the feeling of rage. And we really need to make space for all of our emotions without judgment. Okay. So I just want to thank you guys I just want to thank you guys tonight so much for joining me and being a part of the conversation. Leave some comments on the video if you watch this later. If you have not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Make sure notifications are on, and share with someone you love that you believe could benefit from this type of content. All right. Thank you guys so much for being with me tonight. I love you, and I will see you next time. Peace.